Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries. Today, we're diving into one of the most thrilling hunts in American coin collecting history. The Kennedy half dollar, a coin born in tragedy, wrapped in mystery, and now, hiding secrets that could change your life. Some of these rare halves have turned up in pockets, drawers, and dusty coin jars across America, only to stun collectors with values that reach into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yes, even beyond. What makes them so rare? Tiny minting errors, limited releases, and historic events that slip these coins into circulation by accident. Now, let's begin our treasure hunt with the coin most collectors have seen, but very few realize, could hold life-changing value. The 1973 Kennedy half dollar. At first glance, this coin may look like just another pocket piece from the 70s. But when you really know what to look for, you'll realize this half dollar hides stories of history, error, and staggering value. The year 1973 was special. By then, the Kennedy half dollar had been in circulation for less than a decade. It was introduced in 1964, just months after the shocking assassination of President John F. Kennedy, as a tribute to America's fallen leader. But by 1973, the silver was long gone. Instead of the 90% silver of the first year, these coins were struck in copper nickel-clad, not exactly precious metal, but still carrying Kennedy's unforgettable portrait on the front and the bold presidential seal on the back. Millions were struck, but here's the twist. Not a single one was released into regular circulation. That's right, the US Mint produced over 64 million of these coins. But they were packaged only in mint sets and proof sets. Meaning, if you somehow have a 1973 Kennedy half dollar that shows wear from circulation, that alone makes it fascinating. It means someone cracked open a mint set and spent it, and that coin managed to survive the decades. In fine condition. A regular 1973 half dollar might seem modest at just a few dollars. But things get shocking when you move into uncirculated grades. Brilliant examples straight from the mint set can sell for hundreds, even thousands when they reach gem condition. And then, the real surprises begin with errors. Collectors go wild for 1973 halves struck off center, double struck, or with dramatic planchet flaws. Imagine pulling one from a box and realizing you're holding a double die obverse with Kennedy's features doubled so sharply it almost looks like two presidents staring back at you. These rare error coins have crossed the auction block for staggering sums. $20,000, $50,000, even higher for the most dramatic examples. But the real prize is the 1973 Kennedy half dollar, with the rare full strike, graded Ms. 68 or higher. There are only a handful of these known, and when they appear at auction, collectors battle fiercely. One pristine example shocked bidders when it soared into six-figure territory, fetching over $150,000. Just imagine, a coin that most people overlook, tucked away in a forgotten set, suddenly revealing itself as a life-changing treasure. So here's the secret: check your 1973 Kennedy half dollars carefully. Look for sharp detail in Kennedy's hair, crisp strikes on the eagle's shield, and flawless fields. A tiny difference in quality could mean the difference between a $5 coin and one worth more than a luxury car. And if you happen to spot a dramatic mint error, you could be holding a coin worth more than an entire retirement fund. Next up, things get even more interesting as we move to another Kennedy half dollar that hides an even bigger surprise. Next up on our list is the 1985 Kennedy half dollar, coin many collectors completely overlook. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous to underestimate. At first glance, it looks like just another copper nickel-clad half dollar from the 80s. But let me tell you, this year hides a few surprises that could leave you absolutely stunned. By 1985, the Kennedy half dollar had been in production for more than 20 years. The silver was long gone, and the coin was largely forgotten in everyday commerce. Most Americans rarely saw a half dollar in their change anymore. But the US Mint kept striking them every year, mostly for collectors, and 1985 was no exception. Struck in Philadelphia and Denver, these coins came with the familiar portrait of Kennedy on the obverse and the proud presidential seal on the reverse. Millions were minted, yet here's where things get fascinating. While they were made in big numbers, very few survived in pristine condition. Most that surface today are dull, scratched, or heavily circulated in fine condition, like the one we're talking about right now. The value might only be a couple of dollars, but once you move into high-end circulated grades, the story changes dramatically. A perfect mint state example with blazing luster can shock bidders, easily crossing the $2,000 to $5,000 range. Now, combine that with a rare mint error, and suddenly, the ordinary 1985 half-dollar becomes a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. Picture this: a 1985D struck on the wrong planchet, maybe on a quarter or even a foreign coin blank, slipped past mint inspectors. These wrong planchet errors have sold for jaw-dropping sums, some exceeding $40,000. Even more mind-blowing are double strikes and off-center strikes, where Kennedy's profile is grotesquely shifted to the edge of the coin. Error hunters drool over these, and they've been known to push final bids well into the $75,000 range and beyond. And then there are the elusive perfect grades. A 1985 half-dollar certified Ms. 67 or higher is almost impossible to find because of the way these coins were handled at the mint. They were struck quickly, stacked, bagged, and shipped with little care. The result? Countless tiny scratches and contact marks. That's why when a true gem example comes to auction, collectors go absolutely wild. One top-graded 1985 half-dollar stunned the community when it sold for well over $125,000. Proof that even a clad coin from the 80s can become a collector's dream. So here's what to look for. Check your 1985 halves for strong luster, sharp strikes on the eagle's feathers, and clean, unmarked fields. If you see something strange like a missing mint mark, doubled letters, or a shifted design, don't dismiss it. That could be your ticket to a six-figure payday. And remember, we're only getting started. The next Kennedy half-dollar we'll cover has a backstory so incredible, and a value so shocking, it'll make the 1985 look almost common by comparison. Now, let's step back to the late 60s. A year that completely changed the Kennedy half-dollar forever: 1968. If you've got a 1968 half-dollar, you may be holding onto a piece of history that's far more valuable than you think. Because this is the year the U.S. Mint made a decision that shocked collectors and still sparks excitement to this day. The 1968 Kennedy half-dollar was struck just 4 years after the coin's emotional debut in 1964, honoring President John F. Kennedy. But here's the twist. While the first year was 90% silver, by 1965, the mint had cut the silver content down to 40%. And 1968 was a critical turning point, because it was the very first year the mint mark returned to U.S. coins after a short pause. That tiny little D for Denver, sitting right below Kennedy's neck on the obverse, marks history in your hands. Now, in fine condition, a 1968 half-dollar with 40% silver content might only be worth its silver melt value, about $5 to $10 depending on silver prices. But when we step into higher grades, the numbers start climbing fast. Brilliant uncirculated examples are highly collectible, easily bringing in $50 to $200. And then come the truly jaw-dropping values: coins with rare errors. Imagine finding a 1968 half-dollar struck without a mint mark, when it should carry that little D. These no mint mark varieties are incredibly scarce and can sell for thousands. Even more dramatic are double die obverses, where Kennedy's profile and inscriptions show ghostly doubling. Some of these rare errors have crossed the auction block for $25,000, $50,000, even upwards of $75,000. And when it comes to proof coins struck in San Francisco, things get even wilder. Proof versions with cameo or deep cameo contrast those frosty white devices against jet black fields can stun collectors, soaring into the $15,000 to $30,000 range. But here's the ultimate shocker. A flawless 1968D Kennedy half-dollar graded Ms. 67 or higher is almost a unicorn in the hobby. the minting process and the way coins were bagged back, then left most of them scuffed and battered. That's why the handful of gems that survive today can fetch unbelievable sums. One such piece set headlines when it sold for well over $150,000. Yes, a coin most people might think of as just a 40% silver half-dollar transformed into a six-figure treasure. So, what should you look for in your own 1968 Kennedy? Check the fields for heavy marks, examine Kennedy's hair for sharp detail, and pay close attention to the mint mark. If it's missing, doubled, or strangely placed, you could be holding something worth a fortune. And don't forget about proofs. Those mirror-like fields can make all the difference in value. The 1968 Kennedy half-dollar proves that not all silver coins are created equal. What seems like a common collectible can turn out to be one of the most valuable halves in your entire collection. And trust me, the next Kennedy half-dollar we're about to cover has a story so unbelievable, it makes the 1968 look tame in comparison. Moving forward, we arrive at 1983, a year that produced one of the most surprising Kennedy half-dollars of all. Most collectors dismiss the 1983 half-dollar as just another clad issue from the 80s. But let me tell you, this coin hides secrets that could change everything you thought you knew about modern U.S. coinage. First, let's set the scene. By 1983, the Kennedy half-dollar was rarely seen in everyday pocket change. The mint was still striking them in huge numbers, but mostly for distribution through banks and for collectors. Silver had been gone since 1971, so these were copper nickel-clad coins, the kind most people barely noticed. Millions were made in both Philadelphia and Denver, each bearing their mint marks. In fine condition, like the one we're focusing on now, you might think it's worth just 50 cents, but oh, how wrong that assumption can be. Here's why. 1983 was a notoriously rough year for U.S. coin production. The minting process left most half-dollars from this year scarred with scratches, bag marks, and weak strikes. Finding one in truly pristine, high-grade mint state is almost impossible. That's why when in Ms. 66 or higher surfaces, collectors lose their minds. Prices can jump from a few dollars into the thousands. One stunning 1983 half-graded Ms. 67 hammered down at auction for more than $15,000. But the real shockers come from errors. The 1983 Kennedy half is famous for spectacular mint mistakes. Off-center strikes, double strikes, and clipped planchets exist, and they can bring in jaw-dropping figures. Some of the most dramatic double strike errors have sold for $25,000, $50,000, even over $75,000 depending on condition and eye appeal. Even stranger are the rare struck on wrong planchet errors, where a Kennedy half from 1983 was accidentally struck on a quarter blank. Imagine Kennedy's portrait squished into a smaller coin. Those bizarre pieces can rocket into six figures with the right buyer. And don't overlook proof like strikes. Even though no official proofs were issued at Philadelphia or Denver, occasionally a coin would come off the press with a mirror-like finish from fresh dies. These rare, flashy examples are collector magnets, sometimes selling for $5,000 to $10,000. Now here's the crown jewel. A perfect 1983 Kennedy half-dollar certified in ultra-high mint state, free from contact marks, with booming luster, has sold for over $125,000. Yes, a clad coin from the 80s, something most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the street, can become a six-figure payday if you know what to look for. So how do you spot a potentially valuable 1983 Kennedy? Start with the basics. Check the mint mark for doubling, examine Kennedy's hair for crisp definition, and inspect the fields for unusual finishes or strange strikes. Anything that seems off could be the sign of a rare error. And if your coin is in dazzling, near-flawless condition, you may have something truly extraordinary. The 1983 Kennedy half-dollar proves once again that it's not just the old silver coins hiding big value. Even the overlooked, modern-clad issues can deliver shocking surprises that leave collectors speechless. And coming up next, the Kennedy half-dollar we'll uncover has a backstory so wild, it could make this 1983 look like small change. Now, Let's take a closer look at the 1974 Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that seems ordinary at first, but one small detail has turned it into one of the most talked about issues in the entire series. In fine condition, it looks like just another half-dollar from the 70s. But if you know what to search for, this coin could turn out to be a jaw-dropping treasure. The year 1974 was a critical time for the Kennedy half-dollar. The nation was in economic turmoil, inflation was high, and silver had already been stripped from circulating halves 3 years earlier. By then, the Kennedy was strictly copper-nickel clad. Millions were struck at Philadelphia and Denver, with the familiar D mint mark appearing just below Kennedy's neck for Denver issues. For most people, it was just a coin that rarely showed up in circulation anymore, often tucked away in bankrolls or used by collectors to complete albums. But then came the discovery that changed everything. The famous 197 for D double die obverse. This is one of the most dramatic double dies of the entire Kennedy series, and it's the reason this year is burned into every serious collector's mind. On this error, Kennedy's bold profile is doubled, especially noticeable in the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," and the date. The doubling is so sharp, you don't even need a magnifying glass to see it. When this variety hit the market, it sent shockwaves through the hobby. Suddenly, what seemed like an everyday 1974 half-dollar could turn into a coin worth tens of thousands. Now, let's talk values. In fine condition, a standard 1974 half-dollar isn't worth much more than face value, maybe $1 or $2 for collectors filling holes. But jump into uncirculated territory, and prices quickly climb. A brilliant mint state coin with strong luster can sell for $50 to $150. Proof issues from San Francisco, with their mirror-like surfaces, range from $20 to several hundred depending on cameo quality. But the double die obverse? That's where the fireworks happen. Circulated examples can bring in thousands, while high-grade mint state versions have stunned collectors with final bids of $40,000. $75,000, even over $100,000 in recent auctions. And here's the kicker, some of the very best graded examples, flawless, Ms. 66 or higher, almost impossible to find. The combination of a clear double die and pristine condition sends collectors into bidding wars. A few of these rarities have broken six figures, with prices soaring past $150,000. Just imagine. A coin most people would overlook in their change, becoming worth more than a luxury car. So, here's what you need to know when looking at your own 1974 Kennedy half-dollars. Always check the inscriptions for doubling. Pay close attention to "In God We Trust" and the date. If you see ghostly shadows or doubled letters, you may have a treasure on your hands. And don't underestimate condition. A clean, sharply struck example is rare and highly desirable. The 1974 Kennedy half-dollar is living proof that even in an era when silver was gone, fortune still hides in the details. One small error can transform an ordinary coin into a life-changing discovery. And as we move on to the next Kennedy half-dollar, get ready because its backstory and shocking values climb even higher. Next up is the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar. And if you've got one in your collection, you might want to take a closer look. Because this year marks a massive turning point, and it holds a secret that could make your heart skip a beat. Up until 1970, every Kennedy half-dollar contained silver. The first year, 1964, was 90% silver. From 1965 through 1970, the mint used a reduced 40% silver composition. But in 1971, everything changed. For the very first time, Kennedy halves struck for circulation were made of copper-nickel clad, the same metal mix we still see today. That means if you're holding a 1971 half-dollar, you're holding the first of its kind. The beginning of the modern era for this coin. In fine condition. A normal 1971 half-dollar isn't worth much more than face value. Maybe $1 or $2 to a collector who needs one for their album. But here's where the story takes a shocking twist. A very small number of 1971 Kennedy halves were struck on leftover 40% silver planchets from 1970. These were never supposed to exist, but somehow a few slipped through. And when one of these rare silver planchet errors is found, the value is absolutely staggering. We're talking auction results in the $30,000 to $60,000 range, with some pristine examples soaring over 100,000. And that's not all. There are also spectacular doubled die obverses from 1971, where Kennedy's profile and the inscriptions show ghostly doubling. Imagine spotting Liberty or In God We Trust, doubled so sharply that it leaps off the coin. Errors like these have shocked collectors with values well into the $25,000 to $50,000 range, depending on grade. But let's not forget about condition. Most 1971 halves were struck quickly and carelessly, leaving them covered in scratches and bag marks. That's why true gem quality examples are extremely scarce. And Ms. 66 or Ms. 67 can sell for thousands, and the very best of the best, those flawless top population coins, have been known to reach six-figure territory at auction. One record-setting example crossed the block for over $150,000, turning what most people see as just a clad $50 into a life-changing discovery. So, how do you identify a valuable 1971 Kennedy $50? First, check the weight. Silver planchet errors are heavier than the normal clad coins. If your coin weighs around 11.5 grams instead of the usual 11.34, you may be holding one of those legendary mistakes. Next, inspect for doubling in the inscriptions and Kennedy's hair detail. And of course, examine the overall condition. The sharper and cleaner the coin, the higher the potential payday. The 1971 Kennedy $50 proves that history and value often hide in plain sight. What most people pass over as pocket change could be a rare silver error worth a small fortune. And as we keep climbing this list, the Kennedy halves only get rarer, stranger, and far more valuable. Now, we come to the 1977 Kennedy $50, a coin that most people wouldn't think twice about, yet hidden among these common issues are treasures that have left collectors speechless. In fine condition, it may look worn, ordinary, and worth just 50 cents. But behind that modest appearance is a story of minting quirks, overlooked varieties, and shocking auction results. By 1977, the Kennedy $50 was 13 years old, and public use of the coin was fading fast. Most Americans simply didn't use halves in daily life anymore. The mint kept striking them in Philadelphia and Denver, but more and more of the production went straight into collector rolls, bank vaults, and mint sets. Like all post-1971 halves, these were copper nickel-clad coins, lacking the silver of earlier years. But here's where things get interesting. 1977 is known for some of the most bizarre mint errors in the entire Kennedy series. Circulated examples, in fine condition, might only fetch $1 or $2, but when you move into uncirculated territory, prices can rise quickly. Mint State 65 coins can bring in $50 to $100, while the very finest Ms. 67 pieces command thousands. And when error coins enter the picture, the value rockets. Some 1977 halves were struck off-center, with Kennedy's portrait pushed halfway off the coin. Others were double-struck, showing ghostly second images overlapping the first. Then there are the wrong planchet errors. 1977 halves accidentally struck on quarter or foreign coin blanks. These oddities look so strange, collectors will fight tooth and nail to own them. Prices for these wild mistakes range from $20,000 to $75,000, depending on rarity and condition. Even more jaw-dropping are the top-graded survivors. Because the mint produced these coins in such high volume and handled them roughly, most came out of bags with scratches, scuffs, and dull strikes. Finding a 1977 Kennedy $50 with blazing luster and flawless surfaces is like striking gold. The handful graded Ms. 67 or higher have sold for record-shattering sums, with one example topping $125,000 at auction. Just imagine a coin dismissed by most as common pocket change, transforming into a six-figure treasure for the sharp-eyed collector. So, how do you spot a potentially valuable 1977 half? Look closely at Kennedy's hair for strike sharpness. Scan the inscriptions for doubling, and weigh your coin to check for off-metal errors. Anything unusual could be worth far more than you realize. And if you happen to have a pristine, untouched example, you may be holding a fortune. The 1977 Kennedy $50 is proof that even the most ordinary years in the series can hide extraordinary surprises. And as we approach the final coin in this lineup, prepare yourself, because the last Kennedy $50 on our list may just be the most shocking of them all. And now, we reach the final stop in our journey. The 1980 Kennedy $50. At first glance, it looks like the most ordinary coin of the decade, but this one has a twist that will leave you in disbelief. Because the 1980 Kennedy half is more than just another clad $50, it's a coin that hides rare treasures worth small fortunes. By 1980, the Kennedy $50 was nearly forgotten in everyday use. Americans rarely saw them in circulation, and most coins went straight into collector rolls or sat untouched in banks. This year marked an important milestone. It was the first time since 1964 that the mint put the P mint mark on Philadelphia-struck coins. That tiny P below Kennedy's neck made history, a small detail most people missed, but one that collectors prize today. In fine condition, a standard 1980 $50 might only be worth about $1. Nothing too exciting there. But once again, it's the rare conditions and stunning errors that transform this coin into something unforgettable. Mint state examples with blazing luster and no marks can sell for hundreds, sometimes thousands. Proofs from San Francisco, with sharp cameo contrast, can push into the $500 to $1,000 range when perfectly preserved, but the real jaw-dropper is in the errors. 1980 is notorious for dramatic off-center strikes, double strikes, and wrong planchet errors. Imagine pulling out a coin where Kennedy's face is shifted halfway off the coin, or worse, a 1980 $50 struck on a quarter planchet, leaving part of the design missing. These bizarre mistakes are rare beyond belief, and when they surface, collectors pay huge money. Some of these wild 1980 errors have shocked the auction block, selling for $50,000, $75,000, and in a few cases, over $100,000. And then there's the hunt for flawless condition. Most 1980 halves are riddled with contact marks from the minting process, so gem examples are scarce. But when an ultra-high-grade survivor turns up, collectors battle hard. The finest known pieces, graded Ms. 67 or higher, have soared past $125,000, proving once again that even a late-date clad half can reach six-figure heights. So, here's the takeaway. Check your 1980 Kennedy $50 carefully. Look for that historic P mint mark. Search for errors and pay attention to condition. If you spot sharp detail, strong luster, or anything unusual about the strike, you could be holding a rare gem worth far more than you ever dreamed. And there you have it, 8 Kennedy $50 that most people overlook. Yet each one has the power to deliver shocking value. From silver surprises to double dies, from mint-mark mysteries to six-figure gems, these coins prove that treasures still hide in plain sight. So now the question is, do you have one of these ultra-rare Kennedy $50 in your collection? Imagine the thrill of discovering a coin worth more than a brand new car, or even a house, sitting quietly in your drawer. That's the magic of coin collecting, the mystery, the history, and the chance to stumble upon a true fortune. If you enjoyed uncovering these secrets with me, make sure to subscribe right now so you never miss another mystery from the US Mint. And remember, your next big discovery could be waiting in the very next coin you check.